7:38. Good morning to you. This is Breakfast on GBNEWS, on your TV, your radio, and online. Let's go through the papers this morning. Joining us again, broadcaster Liz Kershaw and author James Bloodworth. Morning to you. Let's kick off with, I know what you're trying to do, Liz Kershaw. Your chair's a bit high.
Don't mind if you do, I look like a giant, so go down a bit.
Go down a bit, yeah. There you go. That's more like it.
Right, I know my place.
You do. Let's have a look at the Tory leadership, Liz, in the Express.
Yeah, well, it is quite topical, isn't it? Rishi Sunak was on the TV debate, the one that didn't end.
Yeah.
Bang, poor girl. And I watched it, although I kept thinking, oh, time travel. Anyway, he interrupted Liz Truss about 20 times, and especially when she was talking about tax and spend. And he accused her of not only being economically naive at best, or ignorant, and irresponsible, but morally bankrupt for thinking of deferring payment of our debts by 3 years. Not forever, 3 years. And then all of a sudden, he's now saying he's going to save us all from the burden of fuel prices, energy prices, by, hello, haven't we been suggesting this on this programme for weeks, months, by taking the VAT off domestic fuel bills? It's only 5%, and cutting fuel duty and VAT on petrol. And he's now saying, I will use our Brexit freedoms to cut VAT on energy bills to help millions of families. If I win, I pledge to make the most of our Brexit freedoms. Right, okay, Brexit happened on the 31st of December 2019. So we've had a good couple of years, and while he's been Chancellor, and especially since the beginning of this year when this fuel crisis started because of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, people have been begging for him to do this as Chancellor, and he's just totally ignored it. With especially car fuel, diesel or petrol, he's creamed in about, last count a month ago, about 12 billion extra for the Treasury in extra fuel duty, which is compounded by VAT on the fuel duty as well as petrol, so it's tax on tax, and he's done nothing. And even till the debate I watched on the BBC, he was still saying, no, we can't do that, it could be inflationary, I can't do it. And he's seen the polls, and he's now saying, I'm going to use Brexit freedoms to do this. I'm sorry, it's totally cynical. I think he should do it. He can't do it at the moment because he resigned as Chancellor in order to stab Boris Johnson in the back, get rid of him. He already had his own campaign for leadership lined up with video and website domain and all the rest of it, and he can't do it at the moment. I don't think he'll be able to do it because if Liz Truss wins, which I predict she will, he won't be in the cabinet, I don't think. So it's just hotter. Just a comment in from viewer Tom O'Brien since the last round of papers.
Well, I know that name. He's a regular tweeter.
Well, he makes a good point, because I've looked at my gas and electric bills and thought, why is the standing charge increased so much?
Yeah.
Tom says, even if I use zero fuel, gas and electricity in my home now, my bill would still go up 30% because of the increase in standing charge. Why? How do they justify that?
That I don't know. Because the standing charge doesn't have to go up.
No, it's for the provision of the network, the pipes into your house, the wires. It's just incomprehensible.
Very
If we look at the Times, James, you've got a story, page 2, about what's happening to social care.
Yeah, so NHS bosses are warning that we need to increase funding in social care, but increase pay to social carers to stave off catastrophe in the NHS. Because, I mean, I worked in social care in 2016 for a book, research for a book, as a kind of home care of it, where you visit elderly people and disabled people in their homes. And the sector, it was probably the hardest job I've ever done. It's because it's physically taxing, but it's also emotionally exhausting as well. And the pay is awful. The pay and conditions are awful. You're on a 0 hours contract. We were actually paid below the minimum wage because you have to pay for your own petrol to drive around. So I was paid at the time about £6 an hour. It worked out as to do probably the hardest job I've ever done. And this kind of the terms and conditions in that job are leading to, there's a massive deficit of workers in the industry. So there's 165,000 vacancies in social care. And the state of the social care sector has a massive impact on the NHS and beds in the NHS, because what's happening at the moment is there are elderly people in hospital, vulnerable people in hospital, and hospitals are afraid to discharge them to the community because they're in the community, there isn't the social care to look after them. And it also works another way as well, because you have people who are not getting proper social care treatment in the community. And then because it's so hard to get a GP's appointment, they're often then, their first port of call is A&E, which creates an even further backlog in hospitals in A&E. And this is another area where successive governments have promised to sort this out. And there was hope that Boris Johnson might do that. And my fear is now that the plan that Boris, to his credit, I mean, there are many issues I have with his time as Prime Minister, but to his credit, he actually tried to get to grips with the social care crisis. My worry is that now with these new Tory leaders, that falls on the back burner again, and social care is kind of kicked into the long grass, because it's so overdue, a reform to this sector. And it's not just the Conservative governments that have failed to reform it. I mean, previous Labour governments have as well. And as one care worker said to me when I was working in the sector, she said that as it stands, carers, they do one of the most important jobs in the country, yet they're treated like glorified cleaners. No disrespect to cleaners, but this is such an important job, and it's not paid, not remunerated properly. And this is one of the reasons why we have such a crisis in the sector.
Yeah. There's, I don't know how you begin to address it though.
Well, just very briefly, I mean, it's privatised. If you're old and you're ill, you've paid in all your life, but you have to pay your own care. And my mum, before she went into hospital and then was chucked out and put in a care home where she died 2 weeks later at the beginning of COVID, but we were paying £18 an hour for somebody to go into my mum's house as a carer, personal service, give her a medication. Paid to be giving your own medicine, Anyway, we were paying £18 an hour, and I asked the lady who came in, what do you actually get? Because you have to do it through an agency.
Yeah.
She said, I get £10. Sorry, I get £8. So the agency was creaming off a tenner.
Yeah.
And the actual lady was getting £8. And we said, can we
It's a scandal.
employ you? No, you can't. I've had to sign a contract. It's just such a mess. Yeah.
It's not right.
I really admire people who do it and work in care homes.
Now, what do you make, Liz, of the Times? What are they saying about TV cameras in court?
Well,
Are they applauding it or not?
yeah, I think it's half-baked. My experience of being in court, not as a defendant, I hasten to add, once as a witness and once witnessing what was happening with the woman who stole £86,000 off my mum, a carer. That's a different side of the matter. But you can't just show the verdict out of context, is my feeling. So you'll watch, you'll see the judge, and you might see the summing up, and then you'll see him pass sentence. You will have had no idea how the case was set out beforehand, and the circumstances and how it panned out, and the evidence. And so it's meaningless.
Rosie made a good point earlier on when we were chatting in the break. I mean, presumably this will be streamed live somewhere, so you can watch the whole summing up and all the judges' comments and everything. But the vast majority of people are just going to see what is used in news bulletins, which is just a clip of the sentence.
If you sit in a court, as I did, and watched this woman who had my mum's trust, and who emptied her bank account and pinched her car basically before she got scared and dumped it on the drive. If you sat there for 2 days like I did and watched all the evidence, and then she's convicted, she's found guilty, and then the judge says, well, because you did this, I can only give you this as a maximum sentence. Because you pleaded guilty, I'm restricted to what I can give you. So I'll give you an 18-month sentence, suspended for 2 years. Now, if you saw that, would you have any idea what that woman had done to my mother, or what we just heard evidence? I don't.
What about this from Mike saying, keep the media away from our courts? They turn it into a circus, as they do with everything they get involved in. The media needs culling. It's way too big for its boots.
I think it depends how it's covered. So if it's, I assume way it's been talked about, it would be something like the BBC Parliament coverage, where it's very, very straightforward and without frills, if you like. I think that could be useful because I think it creates confidence in the system to have some level of transparency. I mean, I've done jury service before, and most of the trial, it wasn't exciting, but I did feel I came away with a better understanding of how it works. But I think it's a huge problem if it turns into this entertainment show, so it becomes like the Johnny Depp.
I sort of think is a bit inevitable.
Trial. I mean, it doesn't have to be because I don't think BBC Parliament has gone down that route. But I think then it would not many people watch that channel. It's kind of quite boring. But if you're interested in it, it can be quite informative.
It's not Judge Ryder or Rumpole of the Bailey. It's really can be quite tedious. Also, it's voyeuristic. Look, you know, you've got the people who love the victim, for instance. You know, do we zoom in on their facial expressions? And I don't know.
See, it's interesting. There's been so much campaigning for it to happen. 10 years by broadcasters, and now the general sentiments that we're getting today is, I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea.
Mind you, I was riveted to the O.J. Simpson trial and the Oscar Pistorius trial.
Well, yeah, but that is a sort of voyeurism.
Yeah, I know, and I don't
There is a danger it becomes like that because politics shows are becoming a bit more like the States, where it's infotainment.
Yeah. Interesting, is it? Let us know what you think. gbnews@gbnews.uk. You two are out of time.
Oh.
But we will see you a little bit later on. Liz Kershaw, James Bloodworth. Thank you.
We will do right now.